Good morning, everybody. Welcome to the Cape Cod Technology Council's EarthTech Q&A. This is our last Q&A of the month. We started off with Vineyard Wind. We had subjects on electric vehicles, agri-solar, electric airplanes, and now we're finishing off the month talking about green technology innovation with Katie Geusz at Greentown Labs. So very much looking forward to that conversation. Next month, we've got company called Xterra is going to be presenting, Alyssa Ordway, and they help train folks in virtual reality. This has gone beyond gaming now. It's something that's being used for business and other applications. And so we're going to learn about what sort of opportunities there are for that. So if you know of students or people who are looking to make a career change, this might be an interesting topic. If you have contacts in some schools, this also might be some folks who'd be interested in hearing about what these opportunities are. So that'll be great. And our coffee Q&A for May, which is on the third Friday in May, we've got Jay Sheehan from the Cape Media Center. He's also a Berkeley-trained audio engineer, and we're going to be talking about the digital music revolution in terms of how things have changed for recording music, especially at home. Over the past few years, and especially over this past year, where all of us musician folks were confined to our home studios. So it should be some fun events in May. Looking forward to that. I'm Bert Jackson, CEO of the Cape Cod Technology Council. Just want to welcome everybody here today. Nice to see Robin here, our program chair. Rich Riker is on our board of directors. Kate McMahon, our clerk for the board of directors. Nice to see you here today. There might be some others that I'm missing, but thank you all for your support and your service on the board. And as we always do with these, we have a little marketing minute to help you up your marketing game and talk about promoting your business. And so Dale Shabigian from Cape and Plymouth Business Media is going to give us a quick marketing tip. Dale, are you ready to go?
I'm ready to go. Thanks, Bert. Hi, good morning, everyone. Really excited for today's discussion. And today, I did talk about this recently, but I did want to bring it up again because yesterday I attended a great event and panel with E4All. Thank you, Amanda. And there were actually a lot of people concerned about social media. And I heard several times speaking with these business owners, they're worried about their reach and their engagement lowering on Facebook and Instagram. It's a big point of discussion. If you're involved with social media, you may or may not have experienced this, but essentially my advice after working with a lot of clients and being very active on social almost all day long, I just reminded them, if you have 1,000 followers, be happy if 20% actually receive your content. It's just the way it works. Don't worry if people aren't liking, sharing, commenting. A lot of people just don't like or share or comment on social posts. Focus on how many people your content is reaching. If you're not reaching 20%, then you might want to be concerned about the type of content you're promoting. You want to make sure it's high quality, very visual in nature, something eye-catching. You want to try and switch it up, maybe post a video, maybe post an image, maybe post a graphic, maybe go live, right? Use the mechanics of the platform that you're working with to your advantage and see what the platform combined with your content and your audience is going to get better reach for you. Think about going behind the scenes. You know, what can someone get from your social media? Think about things that they can't get from your website or your newsletter, right? Try to let a little bit of the culture of your organization come through. Talk about other people, what's happening in your industry or in your community. This is social media, not selling media. So, you know, we're all struggling for the same thing, to get attention and to help our business grow. So there's a few tips for you if you're struggling with social media right now.
Thanks, Dale. I know for me, I'm always struggling with social media.
We all are.
Social media was invented for struggling purposes.
Yes. It is the great time sinkhole. I know when I have to post something for the Tech Council or one of my other hats, going on Facebook is often half an hour to do a 5-minute post.
It's cringy. Yeah.
Yeah, it's cringy. So I would just like to ask everyone as we go into the presentation, if you could turn off your video. We find that helps with the recording, and obviously, put yourself on mute unless you're speaking. And with that, I would like to introduce our moderator for today. Always exciting to have Amanda here. Amanda Kaiser from E4All. Amanda, welcome.
Thank you so much, Bert. I am super excited to be facilitating this conversation with Katie today. Katie Geusz is the Director of Programs at Greentown Labs. She oversees Greentown Launch, a partnership accelerator program. It helps climate tech startups advance through long-lasting relationships with established companies. Greentown Launch programs touch a variety of technologies from energy storage to building materials to hydrogen to offshore wind. Before Greentown, Katie worked in process improvement and commercial strategy at energy management company Schneider Electric. So I'm so excited that you're here, Katie. Thank you for being part of this today.
Thank you, Amanda. I'm delighted to be here as well. Thank you for having me.
So, I am a huge fan of Greentown Labs, and I would love if you kicked us off and talk to us a little bit about your mission and, how you accomplish that mission at Greentown Labs. And I know you have some slides, so if at any point during the conversation, if you want to throw those up, just feel free, have at it.
Perfect. Thank you. I will. So Greentown Labs is the largest climate tech startup incubator in the United States, in North America, actually. Our mission is to support a community of passionate entrepreneurs who are committed to solving the world's biggest climate and environmental challenges. And we do that in a couple of ways. So first of all, there's our incubator, which of course is all about the benefits of a community. So you can imagine that these entrepreneurs are doing really difficult things that very few other people in the world can really relate to in the same sense. They're building, not only are they having startups, they have hardware startups, which is even more complicated and capital intensive. And there's a lot of technology risk to what they're building. And furthermore, the problems that they're trying to solve and the markets that they're trying to access are new a lot of the times and kind of unknown. And so it's a very unique experience that these entrepreneurs are going through, and having that sense of community is incredibly valuable. Some other things that we support our community with, we certainly have a huge facility in Somerville, Massachusetts, as well as one that we just opened last week in Houston, Texas. That includes lab space, 40,000 square feet of prototyping lab space here in Somerville, 100,000 square foot facility in Somerville, and then we have a wet lab as well. And so this is space that can be very expensive for small companies to find elsewhere in Boston at market rates. And a lot of the equipment that they need to be able to build their prototypes and do their testing would be prohibitively expensive for any one company to be able to rent or own on their own. And so by having these resources in one place, it makes it very accessible for folks to come in and get that development work done. We also have a pretty extensive partnerships program. And so that means connecting startups not only with big corporations who could be their first customer or can help them figure out how to access different markets that the corporates are already playing in, but also investors. There's a very concentrated movement right now in financing around interest in climate tech, which is really, really exciting. And so being able to connect our companies to investors who can fund the development of their companies is very valuable to them. We also have benefits like legal services that we provide, software packages, all kinds of other stuff that our members are able to benefit from. So that's the incubator side.
So that's one side?
Yes, that's one side. So that's the incubator side. And then the side that I actually work more closely with is the Launch Accelerator program. And happy to talk more about that.
Yeah, absolutely.
Awesome. So our Launch Accelerator program really goes deep on one of those dynamics that I just described. You can imagine that when you introduce a startup and a big corporation to each other, there's a lot of benefit to the two being able to productively collaborate on going to market together, or maybe having a purchaser supplier agreement. But to get there is a long road. There is a very big culture difference between startups and corporates. They operate on very different timelines, communication styles. And so sometimes that is a very difficult thing to actually achieve, to go from meeting to partnership. And so where Greentown Launch comes into play is that we focus on making those partnerships happen. And so, for example, we'll work with 1 or 2 corporates at a time to figure out a technology topic they're really interested in. We'll develop a cohort of 4 to 6 startups, and we'll focus on helping those 2 parties come to some sort of a tangible outcome, be it CVC investment or pilot or commercial agreement, you name it. So that is kind of, it's part of Greentown Labs. It's the other way that we advance our mission alongside our incubator.
So one of the things that I'm interested in is you're talking about all of this. I mean, this is a huge amount of resources that you have available to your cohort members, which is exciting and awesome, but can also sometimes be overwhelming to manage and actually make into a cohesive community. So I'm wondering, how do you foster that sense of community and partnership? And, what are some of the action items that you do in order to make that happen? Because that's a challenge.
Totally, absolutely. I think anytime that you're part of a dynamic environment that's changing and there's areas of opportunity that pop up where you least expect them, that is certainly a key ingredient to the picture. I think one thing we do a lot of is trying to connect entrepreneurs in our community to each other across different technology silos. And so, for example, some folks are working on special types of solar panels, others are working on navigation system for cars. But they can still learn a lot from each other. It's about finding those sort of transversal topics, whether it be a CEO roundtable or a CTO meetup group, where folks who are working on different types of software can really share out about what they've learned, what vendors they've worked with, what best practices are, trying to find those transversal topics in the community where it's not just Greentown telling entrepreneurs how to do things, but it's actually the members mentoring each other and providing that peer support that is so special and so hard to find in the world at large, that it's really about that piece of the community.
That's awesome. And so can you tell me a little bit about your selection process in terms of how you figure out who's going to be part of those cohorts, how you select some of your corporate partners? How do you sort of decide who those groups are going to be that, it is beneficial for them to work together?
Great question. Really great question. The corporates that we work with are corporates who really care about climate. They have made it a core part of sometimes their business strategy. Other times it's something that they know is very important for them, even if it's not something they're going to be pursuing as their main business strategy. It's important for them to incorporate into their supply chain. And so the first thing we do when we talk to partners is understand why they want to do this program. We want it to really have traction. We want them to have skin in the game and have a stake in what is going on, and be a very meaningful part of their innovation strategy. So that's how we think about working with corporates. When it comes to choosing the startups for the different programs, it really comes down to what the startups are looking to achieve and how that ties in with what the corporate has in mind. And so if the corporate is looking for technology that they can de-risk through a pilot during the program, and then maybe integrate into one of their products through a commercial agreement or something like that, we want to find a startup who's also interested in an objective like that. We want to find a startup who is excited to work with a corporate, to learn with them, to see them as an example of a customer that they can just learn so much from. I think one of the main benefits of the launch program is that it is an opportunity for startups to get to know all sorts of different stakeholders within a corporate. A lot of the time when you're on the outside looking in, you may only get 1 or 2 contacts that you get to talk to, and you only get a piece of the puzzle. What's special about the launch program is that startups are able to access all sorts of stakeholders, line of business folks, innovation folks, technical folks. We very intentionally involve all these different profiles from the corporate into the program so that the startup can really learn as much as they can and have a holistic experience as possible.
That's fantastic. I love that. So you guys just wrapped up something that you did in partnership with Vineyard Wind and Massachusetts Clean Energy Center, yes?
Yes,
Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, certainly. So the Offshore Wind Challenge, we wrapped that up back in February. And that was a launch program in partnership with Vineyard Wind, which is, of course, is the first utility scale offshore wind project off the coast of the United States. I'm sure you guys are very familiar with that, as well as the Massachusetts Clean Energy Center. And the objective of the program was to advance technologies that allow the offshore wind industry and any other marine industry really to monitor marine life, to do that in real time. And so we were looking for technologies that, number one, could help collect data, analyze it, and or transmit it. And the scope of work during the course of that program was for the startups to complete a pilot project. And the objective of the pilot project is to test whether that technology truly can work for the use case of identifying specifically North Atlantic right whales. And so we had a really cool cohort, 3 different startups that were all doing different things. Let me share some slides with you, or one picture here that I think really tells the story.
Yeah, please.
Okay. So this right here, this is the Open Ocean Robotics USV. And so what this is an autonomous solar-powered vehicle that can traverse the ocean for months at a time collecting data. And specifically, during the course of the Offshore Wind Challenge, this USV was being used to listen for whales. And so this is a really exciting team out of Canada and just doing really, really cool stuff with monitoring.
That is super cool.
Isn't that neat? And it's also like this particular vessel is able to be stabilized in high sea states, which makes it extremely valuable, right? Because you want something robust. And so that was a key part of their value prop.
I love it.
And the other 2 startups in the program, one was Sick Drone, and they have a drone that can also withstand very rough weather conditions. And they were taking aerial photography to monitor whales. And then the last startup was Night Vision Technology Solutions out of Rhode Island. And they have very high-tech cameras, both visual imaging and thermal imaging, that are able to detect marine life at a pretty long distance. And so they were piloting that camera to be able to recognize marine life.
That is very cool. And now we have a question from somebody in the audience, which is this technology that was being used to try to monitor right whales, can it be used for other marine life like sharks?
Ooh, great question. My guess is yes. I don't know that it's been specifically tested to monitor for sharks. One thing that I learned throughout this whole program process is that it's not directly transferable. And so if you're monitoring a seal, for example, and you've proven that you can identify a seal, doesn't necessarily mean that you can absolutely identify a whale. I think it depends on the type of technology you're using to identify, whether it's thermal characteristics or visual characteristics, and how that compares, right? I don't know if a shark has the same skin temperature that a whale does. And so I think that's a really great question. And that's kind of what this program set out to solve specifically for right whales.
That's awesome. And so where does this stand now and where does it go in the future now that it's gone through the pilot program?
Yeah, absolutely. So all of our companies are continuing to do studies and think about how to perfect their R&D. And it's really exciting to think about where this industry is going, right? Because today this feels like kind of a niche market. There's not a ton of offshore wind installations where these boats can be deployed today, but we're hoping that that changes. And we're hoping that companies doing pilots now and thinking through these questions now positions them to be in a great position a few years from now when the construction is truly complete.
Awesome. And so does your launch program have anything cool on the horizon or interesting on the horizon that you can tell us about? Can we get an inside scoop?
Yeah, certainly. So we have 2 programs coming up over the summer. One is called the Kaiteki Challenge in partnership with Mitsubishi Chemical Holdings. This program is focused on proteins, plastics, and packaging. And we will be announcing the participants in that cohort later in May. So that will be happening over the summer. And then another really exciting initiative we have is the Carbon to Value initiative. This is actually kind of like a launch program on steroids. We're doing it in partnership with another incubator called Urban Future Lab out of New York, as well as Fraunhofer USA. And Carbon to Value is focused on the carbon tech market, which is a very, very nascent market. Carbon tech is basically any technology that uses, either captures or utilizes carbon as an input and can transform that into something of value. And it's a very big initiative. It's a 3-year initiative, multiple corporates involved. Our kickoff event is going to be next Thursday, May 6th. If you give me a moment, I will drop in the chat the link to register for that kickoff event. At that kickoff event,
absolutely.
Yeah, certainly. You will be able to see the startups who have been admitted to the program, as well as Doreen from NYSERDA, and then Shuchi Talati, who's the new chief of staff for the DOE.
That's awesome. So that's open to anyone. They can click that link that you just dropped in the chat, bit.ly/C2V kickoff, right?
Exactly.
Awesome.
That's it.
Perfect. So, I'm wondering, how long have you been with Greentown Labs?
A little over 2 years at this point.
All right. So you've had quite a few projects. So I'm wondering if you can tell us about maybe one of your projects that was the most fun or interesting, or something that came out of it that surprised you. Tell us about something that, one of these cohorts that you were really passionate about and excited about.
Oh, great question.
I know it's like telling you to pick your favorite kid, but I'm going to ask you, which one's your favorite kid?
Okay, sure, certainly. I don't know if I can pick a favorite, but I must say that before I came to Greentown, I worked at Schneider Electric, as you mentioned earlier, Amanda. And the way I actually found out about Greentown was when Schneider did a launch program with Greentown a couple years ago. At that point in the program, Schneider was soliciting applications not just from external entrepreneurs, but also employees who had ideas of ways to innovate on existing products. And I thought to myself, I have an idea. I'm going to apply to this program and see what happens. I did get to pitch on the stage at the kickoff event at Greentown Labs, which was super cool. I did not get accepted to the program, which was not surprising because I did not have a company. But from that experience, I realized how interesting the climate tech space was and realized that I really wanted to work in innovation. And so later that year, a job at Greentown came available working on that exact program. And I was able to work on the program from the other side of the table. I must say, we always tell the story and then say we really try not to poach people from our partners. So hopefully that's the exception to the rule. But we've continued to work with Schneider on multiple engagements since then. One of them being the Bold Ideas 2020 program that we just wrapped up in March. And that was focused on energy storage. So we had 2 battery chemistry, energy storage chemistry companies that participated in that. We also had an AI company that participated in that, and as well as a software company. And so I found that super cool because it was an opportunity to work with a company that I knew so well, and I can appreciate how robust their innovation process is. And it was so cool to get to work with it from the other side of the table. So that was really special for me.
Yeah, that's wicked fun to be able to see it from both sides. And, the kismet of it is beautiful.
It was a lot of fun. I really enjoy it.
So I want to open it up and let, some of the folks who are here ask some questions. But I guess the last thing that I want to talk to you about is for anybody who is a giant geek like me, which going to go out on a limb and say Cape Cod Technology Council, that's most of you. What are some good ways to connect with Greentown Labs? I know you gave us the startup kickoff, but, you know, are there ways that people can sign up for newsletters or, you know, support Greentown Labs? Like, what's some ways that people can, you know, continue to stay in touch with your organization?
Absolutely. Let me drop this newsletter link in here. That is the best way to stay up to date about what's going on. Okay, just a moment. There we go. Okay. So our newsletter has information on all sorts of opportunities. We do a lot of events. Our events can range from things like kickoff events for the launch programs that I was just describing, to intern fairs, to being able to bring in really interesting speakers from the climate tech ecosystem. So that is a great way to get involved. And then hopefully, as COVID continues to improve, hopefully we'll be back to doing in-person things at some point in the future. We really look forward to being able to bring everyone together in a safe way when we're able to do so, because I think it's wonderful to be able to do virtual events just like this. And in some ways you can engage more people, right, in a virtual setting. And on the other hand, there is something to being in person that just feels hard to replicate in the end.
Absolutely, 100%. I think we are all on that same page. So I'm going to click this link, greentownlabs.com/newsletter, and I'm going to sign up because I can't wait to see what you guys are up to. And, you know, Bert and I were talking beforehand, and we think we need to do a field trip at some point when everybody is vaccinated. We want to come check out Greentown Labs and get a chance to see what everybody's working on, because I mean, as much as we can, because that sounds like it'll be fun. But we have some questions. So Bert asks, aside from the high profile tech of solar and wind, what other sustainable tech is being incubated at Greentown Labs?
Yeah, great question. A lot of stuff. Just to give you a couple examples, there's a hydrogen refueling station company that we have as a member at Greentown. We actually have a station installed in our alleyway, which is super fun. Some sustainable agriculture companies, novel energy storage, filtration, industrial filtration is extremely energy intensive. And so some companies are looking to find a way to make that process more efficient. IoT for utility lines. What else? It is very broad. We have some sectors that we cluster them in that I do not have in my slides, so I can try to say it right off the bat. But I think transportation is a big one. Energy production is obviously a big one. Agriculture, manufacturing, really the same sectors that Breakthrough Energy Venture uses to categorize their investments. We apply that same lens when we think about the diversity of technologies that make up Greentown.
Fantastic. And Rich wants to know if you guys work with organizations who are maybe looking to make a similar impact in their own communities, but need some help on getting started with that process.
Yeah, certainly. We're always down to chat. Feel free to reach out to me. Let me put my email in the chat and we can get you connected. I think we're really recognizing that like the whole think globally, act locally piece is so important.
Absolutely. You know, I say that to my other half all the time. I'm like, I can't fix the world, but I can work on my little corner. Yeah. This is my little corner. I can do something here. And so the more that each of us is able to, you know, take that into our own hands, it's a beautiful thing to see when a community comes together and starts to solve some of our problems on our own. And, you know, it's exciting. We're going to wait and see if anybody else has other questions. Oh, yeah, here we go. So Bert wants to know, are there any HVAC type tech, which is a huge energy consumer that's being developed, especially now that fresh air is, you know, on everybody's mind and is such a component of the mitigation of coronavirus?
Yeah, yes, great question. I do know that Richard Branson had a prize, I think it's the Global Thermostat Prize, that launched maybe a year or two ago that was specifically focused on this question, because you're right, the consumption of HVAC is an enormous consideration, especially as the planet warms and more people are going to need air conditioning just to survive. So that is a really important topic. And I know that there are multiple people trying to think about the best way to do that.
Awesome. Very exciting. So, one of the things that I talked to you about a little bit on Monday when we were chatting is just how exciting it is to be able to break down some silos and, have some conversations with people across different, sectors of the clean tech energy. And so I'm wondering, how do you go about, actually breaking people out of some of those silos and encouraging them to actually talk to each other and encourage that, some of those concepts of taking those things across different sectors. And I know it's something that you guys are focused on. So tell me a little bit about how you do that.
Yeah, absolutely. It is so important to break down silos in the moment that we are in, where so much is changing so fast and there is such a sense of urgency. It's on the bleeding edge of those silos where really the change is happening. That's where the important things are happening. We can think about that in so many ways. So you can think about it in terms of silos between startups and corporates, which of course is what Greentown Launch is really focused on, is that silo and making that relationship effective. You can think about it in terms of public-private partnerships. And a great example of that is the Offshore Wind Challenge, where we had Vineyard Wind providing the commercial perspective as a developer, and Mass CEC funding the stipends that the startups use to complete their piloting work. And so that sort of cross-collaboration is super important and critical. And then you can also think about it in terms of value chain partnerships. And so we did one program back in 2019 called the Circularity Challenge, where we had two corporates involved, BASF, which of course is a big chemical company, and then Stanley Black & Decker, which I'm sure you're familiar with. They make tools. And the Circularity Challenge was focused on circularity in energy storage, plastics, as well as digital innovation. And as an example, one of the companies at the final showcase, one of the startups, has a technology, essentially blockchain, that allows you to track recycled materials through the value chain to prove that they truly are recycled and it's verifiable. And through working with both BASF and Stanley Black & Decker, at the final showcase, they stood on stage and held up this drill handle that had been manufactured by Stanley with plastic that BASF provided, that they could use, the startup could use their blockchain technology to track that it was truly recycled material. And so the launch platforms are also a great platform for value chain partners to collaborate with each other, because a lot of it's hard, right? You got to get the whole supply chain working in the same direction, really rowing in the same direction, because you need the person who's closest to the supply to implement the technology, and then the person who's closest to the demand to provide that market signal. And so we find that when we can engage multiple players along a value chain, it really closes the loop and reduces that friction of implementation and helps you get to the end result a lot faster. So that's critical for us.
I absolutely love that example. That is so cool. Bert is wondering if you can tell us about any kind of interesting applications for hydrogen, airplanes. I really want to know, when is my personal jetpack being delivered, please?
Ooh, I'll have to check on that one for you, Amanda, because I also have been waiting for my personal jetpack. So much interesting stuff going on in hydrogen right now, and I'm certainly not an expert, but I do know that when we did our H2 refuel program back in 2019, some of the problems that the startups were looking to solve had to do with compression. So being able to really compress the hydrogen into a state that it could be storable, transportable, usable. A lot of them were looking at storage. So how do you have a tank to store this hydrogen? There's also the question of, what's the supply chain going to look like, right? Is it going to be oil and gas companies that really begin producing hydrogen? Is it going to be new players? How does that relate to green energy? So hydrogen is a space that I think there's a ton of activity and interest in right now. I hear so much about it, and it's going to be really exciting to watch how that goes over the next couple of years.
That's awesome. And can you tell us anything, do you have a typical profile for a company who's accepted into the Greentown Labs programs? Anything about their size or where they are on the development chain?
Certainly. So for the incubator, we generally serve companies who have at least a prototype and are going through what is called kind of the valley of death, right? So they're looking for that big first commercial milestone. Maybe it's their first big customer, or they're raising their Series A. That's where a lot of startups struggle and fail. And so that's where we look to really support within the incubator specifically. The launch program can be a little bit broader depending on what the corporate's interested in. Some corporates really want to go early and make seed stage investments. Others are looking for something that's almost ready to deploy, and they want stuff that's much more technologically advanced. So from a core incubator standpoint, it's really that valley of death. You got the prototype and you're looking to get that first commercial financial milestone. And then on the launch side, it's a little bit broader.
Awesome. Well, Katie, thank you so much. Like, this was amazing. I am so interested in what you guys are doing. I hope that you will come back again at some point in the future and let us know, you know, how things are progressing and where you're going, and give us some updates on some of your new exciting projects that are coming out in the months and year to come. So thank you so much for being here. I really appreciate it, Katie.
Thank you, Amanda, and thank you to Robin and Bert for having me. I think it's such a wonderful opportunity to speak with some folks who are our neighbors, right? We're not that far away, and so we're so excited about the Massachusetts innovation landscape, and just so happy to be here today. So thank you for the opportunity.
So with that, I'm going to turn it back over to Robin and Bert and ask you guys if there's any closing thoughts you want to put into the conversation.
Bert, you take it.
Well, thank you. Amanda, thanks so much for moderating today, and great job. Thank you, Katie. Lots of great information. My head is spinning. I'm almost speechless with all the cool stuff that's happening. It's great for, you know, those us nerdy folk to geek out on some of these things. So very much appreciate your time. Really looking forward to that tour, you know, once we're all in the post-vax era. So thanks again. Thank you, Dale, for being a good host and sponsor for us. And thank you all for being here today and attending. So within a few days, I'll have the video up on YouTube, and I'll send everyone a link to the video and some other tidbits of information. Hope to see you at a future First Friday event or one of our upcoming coffee Q&As. We've got great programming all the way through September, so some really cool things happening. So thank you all very much. Enjoy your Friday afternoon. It's trying to be sunny here on the Cape, and I hope you have a nice weekend, and see you all soon. Take care.
Thanks, everyone. Thanks so much, Katie and Amanda.
Yep, thank you.
Thanks, guys.
Great weekend, everyone.
Katie, this was a fun discussion.
It certainly was. Thank
Very
you so
fun.
much. Pleasure to be here.